Actually, puro examples lang naman ito, no? Okay. So, mga examples or excerpts from the Creswell book that our major reference. So, balik tayo. No? Doon sa una nating framework, actually yun ay puro quantitative in nature. No? The IV, DV, mediating, etc., are more inclined to a quantitative approach to inquiry. So, to continue, in a quantitative study, variables are either dalawa yung function related to answer a research question or to make predictions about what the researcher expects the results to show. Katulad nung inyong mga ginawang writing exercise, pwedeng yung drawing na yon ay dalawa ang representation. One, it answers a research question. Example, if your IV is test anxiety and your DV is test score, then the research question is, how does test anxiety influence test scores? Or you can make predictions about what the researcher expects the results to show. Again, with the IV anxiety and DV test scores, then the prediction would be students who are more anxious while taking the test will perform low on the test. These predictions are what we call hypotheses. Okay? Hypothesis, pagka singular, pag marami is hypothesis. So by definition, hypotheses are the predictions that we make about what we expect the results to show. But of course, that prediction has some basis, either the theory or the review of related literature that we have read. Hindi ka naman mag-expect o magpo-propose ng hypothesis nang wala kang pinagbasihan. So there are three forms of theories in quantitative research. One is series of hypotheses. The second one is the if-then logic statements. And the third one is visual models. Nauna nating pinakita na yung pangatlo. Actually, yung exercises nating ginawa ay yun na yung ikatlong form ng quantitative research theory use, no? Yung visual models. So what are series of hypotheses? So allow me to share this as an example by Hopkins, 1964. Anong ibig sabihin ng series of hypotheses? So meron siya dito mga variables, rank, centrality, observability, conformity. Yun yung rank, yun yung kanyang apat na variables. So ang ginawa niyang hypothesis is series. Ibig sabihin, mayroong influence yung isa sa pangalawa, yung una sa pangatlo, yung una sa pang-apat, sa dalawa sa pangatlo. Parang nag-combination siya, no? For the mathematics group, alam niyo yun, yung combining the variables, one affects the other. So ang una niyang hypothesis is the higher rank, the greater centrality. Whatever that centrality is as a variable. And then sabi niya, the next series is the greater centrality, then the greater is your observability. So 1 and 2 are related. 2 and 3 are related. So 1 and 3 are related also. Rank is related to observability. Then another variable, ika-apat, centrality is related to conformity. Rank is related to conformity. Observability is related to conformity, and conformity is related to observability. So there are different variables combined in a series of hypotheses. So lahat yan tinetest niya. Yun ibig sabihin ng hypothesis testing, one form of that in quantitative research. But we don't do that here, no? For a thesis, for a master's thesis, what we are more familiar is the third one, the visual models. Okay? So, pangalawa, aside from series of hypotheses, ay yun namang mga, so an example natin is, if-then, the if-then logic statements. So this is an example. Yung laging merong if, di ba? Pag sinabing if, that's the condition or independent variable. The then is the dependent variable or the outcome. So if-then statements ang tawag. Example, if the frequency of interaction between two or more persons increases, the degree of their liking for one another will increase and vice versa. Okay? Tama naman yun, di ba? Genetically, ang sabi, the more that we interact with someone, then the higher that we'll like each other. Pero hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon. Kaya nga theory. Most of the times, people who interact with one another will most likely like each other and vice versa. Persons who feel o feel siguro to. Wrong typing lang dito. It should be feel. Persons who feel sentiments of liking for one another will express those sentiments in activities over above the activities of the external system, and these activities may further strengthen the sentiments of liking. So again, this is an if-then statements wherein if you are most likely to feel that your expressions of these feelings of sentiments sa mga activities na ginagawa ng bawat isa sa inyo will also increase the sentiments that you will like one another. O parehas yung gustong kumain sa ganito. O parehas kayo ng gustong gawin. Parehas kayo ng pinagkukwentuhan. Then therefore, it's not only your interaction that will increase. It's not only the interaction pala that will cause the degree of your liking, but also the sentiments that you're expressing. And lastly, the more frequently persons interact with one another, the more alike in some respects, both their activities and their sentiments tend to become. Magiging similar na. Kaya dito nabubuo yung friendships, di ba? Nung una, magkaiba kayo, and then definitely, you start interacting with one another, parehas na kayo ng ginugusto, parehas na rin kayo ng mga activities, and therefore, the friendship develops over time. Okay? The third one are the visual models. Ito yung mga ginawa natin. Ito yung inyong assignment. Ito yung mga examples na ginawa natin. And here are some suggestions, which we did already actually. But let's be reminded with this one. So according to Duncan 1985, here are the suggestions in drawing visual models of hypothesized relationships between variables. So position the dependent variable on the right of the diagram and the independent variables on the left. Laging ganon, ano? Left ang independent variable and then right ang dependent variable. Cause, the presumed cause is on the left, the presumed effect or outcome is on the right. Use one-way arrows leading from each determining variable to each variable dependent on it. So one-way arrow. So arrow from left to right. Meaning IV, walang arrow, one-way arrow, nakaturo dapat sa kanan, yun yung dependent variable. Eh sa paano kung walang nakaturo? Hindi yun effect. Ano lang yun? Correlational lang yun. So again, later sa statistics, maaaral natin, sa anong pagkakaiba ng may head o mayroong arrow at yung walang arrow, yung line lang. So lines, shapes, and other representations have meaning in research. Next, you can also indicate the strength of the relationship among the variables by inserting valid signs, pwedeng negative or positive. Para makita ng researcher, X is positively related with Y kasi naglagay ka na mismo ng positive na sign or valid signs or also negative. If there is an analyzed relationship, you're not sure between variables, because you don't know one is dependent or not with another, then use two-headed arrows. Hindi ka sure. So, left and right variables, parehong may arrow. Pwede yun. Pero yun ay theory-based also. Okay, let's have some examples. Ito na yung ating classic example. The variable X is our independent variable that's on the left, affecting our dependent variable Y, test scores. That's our DB. Ang tanong, sir, pwede mong pagbalitin yung Y at saka X? Teresa, in the language of mathematics, can we interchange Y as the independent and X as the dependent variable?
No po.
Because?
Yun po yung norm natin eh. Pag X po, yun yung parang Y po kasi lagi yung nagiging parang effect na yung result natin is always Y. Pwede natin yung X palitan natin ng ibang letter pero Y po kasi technically yan yung ating dependent variable.
In yung
X,
ating
ganun po.
nasa ating vertical axis, 'di ba? Horizontal axis, sorry.
Vertical po yung Y. Ayan.
The horizontal
Sa X.
is the x-axis. The vertical, yung patayo, is the y. So usually relationships, whether it is psychological, businesses, etc., etc., ang laging ginagamit natin is the y and the x coordinate system, 'di ba? Pamilyar naman kayo diba, sa mga graphs, 'di ba? If you read graphs, laging ang ating y is yung nakatayo. So usually, yun ang ating nagiging basis of changes, of examining changes, base sa value ng horizontal line along the x-axis. So y is equal to, so we predict y, di ba? We predict y based on the value of x and the slope of the line plus some constant, right? The slope of the line is dependent also, will depend also on the values of x that we have. Although pwede namang pagpalitin yan, parang awkward na, no? Sa tagal na ng mathematical language natin na x, y, parang magiging awkward na kung predict the value of x based on the value of y. Eh, hindi nga. Dahil nga sa ating coordinate system, ang nandun sa horizontal baseline o yung abscissa na tinatawag natin ay mga values ng x. At yun namang nandun sa vertical line, the ordinate, ay yung values ng y. So again, pero dito sa example ko, anxiety affects test score is grounded by theory. Pwede namang test score affects anxiety yan, di ba? Na-discuss na natin yan nung nakaraan, na pwede magkabaliktad dyan. Depende kung anong theory ang tinitest mo. But whatever theory you are testing, this illustrates that x is the presumed cause and y is the presumed outcome, and there is a one-way arrow leading from left to right. Okay? Pwedeng dalawa yung arrows kasi dito sa experimental, iisa lang yung variable mo. For example, is fertilizer is your variable. Alin ang experimental mo ay 10 spoonfuls and then ang control mo is the ordinary amount. Ang ina-experiment mo ay will the amount of fertilizer affects y or the growth of plants? So this is also possible. Ini-split mo na yung groupings. Dito sa nauna, anxiety, lahat kayo sinukatan ng level of anxiety. Walang control group, walang experimental group. So scores of 100 students were used to predict their test scores. In this example, there are two groups. For example, there are 50 students divided into two randomly. The first group, 25 students, will be the experimental group and shall receive the treatment, whatever treatment is that, or whatever intervention or teaching method is that. And then the control group, yung natitirang 25, yung traditional. And then i-compare later yung kanila magiging Y or performance. So that's another visual representation. Doon sa unang examples natin, mayroon lang isang intervening or mediating. Dito pwedeng isa, dalawa, tatlo ang independent variable. Tapos dalawa ang intervening. Pero syempre isa lang ang dependent variable. Pag tinakpan ko ito, ano ba ito? Ito, this one. The first pattern is the mediating variable. Do you see that one? Yung minark ko na yon. X affects Y, okay? And Y affects Z. That's the first line of the mediating variable. Pero dito sa model na tinitest niya, meron pang second. Ito naman. si second independent variable will also affect y as the mediating, then papunta doon. Pwede rin daw dito sa mediating intervening, papunta doon, at meron na pa siyang pangatlo. O wag niyong gagawin to, hindi tayo matatapos ng isang semester, okay? Pero meron ng ganitong mga models na nagagawa. Why? Because at the moment, meron na tayo ngayong mga technologies, meron na tayong software, meron tayong structural equation modeling softwares, SPSS, AMOS, that can do these computations very quickly. Pero syempre ito, ulitin ko, theory grounded. Don't just put x1, x2, x3, mediating, intervening 1 and 2, dependent variables, pero hindi mo naman kayang explain yung bawat relationship. Napansin nyo, meron tayong mga plus and minus. Dali. Yan ko lang. No. Para mabalik. Ay, bakit nandun? Hindi ko maburan. Dali lang. What did I did? What happened? Mukhang yung screen ko yung nalagyan, ano? Paano ko yung tatanggalin? Dali lang. Drawing kasi ng drawing eh. Where will I do that? Eraser. Do we have an eraser here? I think there is. Eraser. Ayan. Okay, it's erased na. Okay? So ulitin ko, hindi porke maglalagay ka ng variables dito, ay magmi-make sense na. The more variables that you put in the equation, the harder it is for you to explain. Pero ngayon, yan yung mga gusto ng mga journals. Yung kaya mong i-account. Paano yung variable nito? Paano yung variable na yan? Kaya mo na kasing ilagay yun sa equations. Dati, x and y. Ngayon hindi. x1, x2, y. O ngayon hindi na. May z. Tapos may y1, y2. And you can have series of this. Pwedeng dalawa din ang dependent variable. No? Pwede ka pang maglagay. Itong z1 na to, pwede mong split pa into z1 and z2. That's also possible. Pero, nakita niyo dito, meron ng, ito yung sinasabi sa suggestion na number 3. Did you see this one? Yung valence sign na tinatawag. This one? The plus. What does this indicate? X positively affects Y. Yun ang sabihin nun. So, kahit na hindi ko pa nakikita yung relational statements, kahit na hindi ko na makita yung if-then, dahil nagsabi na dito si researcher ng positive balance, ang ibig sabihin nun, X variable positively affects Y, and Y variable also positively affects Z. Pero meron ako isang variable, X3, negatively, ayan affects. O, example tayo. Ano kaya ang X1? X1 is motivation, and this one is effort. Okay, naririnig niyo ba yung example natin? And this one is grades. Motivation positively affects, ano to? Effort. And effort positively affects grades. Ito naman, number 3 natin ay anxiety. Anxiety negatively affects persistence, for example. Dahil anxious ka, negative ang persistence mo. Higher anxiety, lower persistence. Pero positive, si persistence, papunta kay grades. Okay? So the only negative valence is between the third variable, anxiety, to the mediating variable, persistence. Ito naman, x sub 2, positive din doon, positive doon. Therefore, this must be positive also. Ano kaya ito? Halimbawa, ito naman ay achievement goals. Mataas ang goals mo na makatapos. So, if I have high achievement goals, I will exert effort. The second line is, if I have positive achievement goals, I will persist. Okay? So, ulitin ko, ano yung X1 natin? This is motivation. The second variable is achievement goals. The third motivation is anxiety. Dahil itong X1 at X2 ay parehas na positive trait, ina-expect din natin na positive yung kanilang effect sa variables. Okay? Pero dahil negative ito, anxiety, negative din ang kanyang valence doon sa persistence. So that's how we use visual models to represent our hypothesis based on our theory. Okay? That's it. Di pa tayo nagbura. Wait lang. Ay, asa na? O, gusto niyo ng mas masalimuot na pamumuhay? Nakikita niyo ba to? Stop share ba?
So,
Sorry. Oh, now you see?
Yes po.
Do you see now the screen? Oh, this is a dissertation in 1990. Oh, para lang makita natin kung ano yung pagkakaiba ng thesis, master ng thesis sa isang doctoral dissertation. Oh, ayan na po. So this is a dissertation, factors affecting a faculty member's scholarly research performance. Ang hirap nga naman, di ba? Ano daw ba ang mga factors? Oh, ang dami nun, di ba? Ano daw yung mga factors na nakaka-apekto para maging productive si research teacher as a researcher? Ano daw ang measure ng scholarly performance? Presentations, journal articles, referred articles, book chapters. Parang wala ako niyan lahat. Parang dito lang ako meron. Presentation lang at saka article. Itong nandun sa ilalim, malayo tayo doon. Malayo pa. Sabi niya, may mga variables daw na exogenous or outside of the dependent variable na makakaapekto, like demographic variables, sex, gender, income, religion. Tapos ang sabi niya, ano daw ang effect nun? Hindi niya alam. Kaya ang sabi niya, pwedeng positive, pwedeng negative. Ayan o. Did you see the balance sign here? Hindi siya sure kasi may mga demographic variables na positive ang effect sa scholarly performance, mayroon mga negative naman based on theory and research. So ito lang yung niglagyan niya ng plus and minus. Saka ito, yung appointment mo daw ba, kung ikaw ba ay chair or faculty lang, ay may epekto daw ba sa scholarly performance mo? Sabi niya, maybe positive, maybe negative. Pero ang dami niyang mga variables. Example lang tayo ng isa. Tenure or track appointment, ibig sabihin kung isaw ay permanente. Ayan. Kung ikaw ay permanent na daw, ikaw daw ay mas mapipressure na mag-conduct ng research. Permanente ka na nga, di ba? At positively, magiging productive ka sa research. Negative naman, kung ikaw daw ay permanent, yung workload na ibibigay sa'yo na non-research, kukunti na. Di ba? O, edi negative ang performance mo sa research dahil kumonti na nga, di ba? Yung time. So this is a visual representation of the whole study. Yan yung kanyang mga variables, yan yung kanyang mga hypothetical relationships. Tinest lahat yan, pero sabi ko nga, nung 1990, baka isa-isa pa lang yung test na yan. Pero ngayon, after the development of technology that could accommodate all of these variables and compute the model all in one, kayang-kaya natin yan. Regression analysis, no? If the math major is familiar with regression analysis, we can predict y here based on so many variables, x sub 1 and their hypothesized relationship. So we have now sophisticated statistical analysis or tools na pwede natin gamitin to solve complex models. Hindi katulad nitong una lang na IBDB. Okay? So that's visual models. So, saan ba ang lugar ng quantitative theory sa isang research na quantitative? Deductive, no? Ang ating quantitative ay deductive. Remember, we started with the theory and then we gather data to prove it. So the theory is placed at the beginning of the proposed study. To advance it, collect a data to test it, and then you reflect to confirm or disconfirm results. O, ang teorya mo, people who are anxious get lower scores. O, you collect data of anxiety, and then you collect the scores, and then you do some statistical analysis, and then confirm or disconfirm the result. That's how quantitative theories are. So you place it towards the beginning of the proposed study because it's deductive. General to specific. So how do we write a quantitative theoretical framework or perspective? Doon sa ginamit kong reference kay Creswell, mas prefer daw niya ang theoretical perspective na term. Pero sa atin, sa thesis natin, framework ang ginagamit. Theoretical framework. Pero parehas lang yun. Theoretical framework and theoretical perspective are synonymous. So how do we write a quantitative research? Una, look in the discipline-based literature for a theory. Kaya nga, di ba, meron na kayong exercise na unang ginawa dati. Online database. Anong theory ang gagamitin? Base sa variables. Examine prior studies that address the topic or a closely related topic. Hindi na ngayon excuse na wala kang basa because we have online subscriptions. Hindi man lahat ng online subscriptions ang meron sa CLSU. Marami na tayong online subscriptions sa CLSU. Explain or elaborate the connection between the independent and the dependent variable. Why would the independent variable influence the dependent variables? And then script out the theory section. I-explain mo na siya. Okay? So ito ay meron tayong mga examples. According to Creswell, ito daw yung template. How to write the theoretical framework. The red, fonts in red and in close parentheses, open and close parentheses are the things that you are going to supply in your write-up. Sabi niya dito, the theory that I will use is the theory of self-determination. O, di ba? Kung anong theory? It was developed by, kung sino yung Mars, Ryan, and blah, 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 2010. Nakalagay yan. And it was used to study Identify the topics where one finds the theory being applied. Saan daw ginagamit yung theory na yon? So in other words, when you introduce the theory, kailangan pangalanan mo muna. Name the theory, identify the origin, the source, or the developer of the theory, saan ginagamit ang theory na ito. Then, the second sentence is, ano ang propositions ni theory? Anong sinasabi ni theory? Then, as applied to my study, this theory holds that I would expect that my independent variable, anxiety, will explain the dependent variable test scores because, ayan, explain mo ngayon. Pero hindi mo uulitin na yung proposition. In your own understanding, ano naman ang iyong paliwanag? How would the IB affects the DB? So for beginners, this is a good template. Now, this is a good lead sentence. Then as you go on with your writing, you deviate from that. Kasi nakakabasa ka na ng maraming articles, nakakabasa ka na ng maraming journals na hindi na ginagamit yung mga templates na yan. Pero yan pa rin yun. Hindi man ganyan ang template, yan pa rin yung makikita mo sa mismong laman. The theory name, the origin, where it's used, what does it tell, and what are the variables, and how they are related. That's basic. Okay? Ayan. So mayroon tayong example dito. In formulation of a theoretical perspective for studying the scholarly productivity of faculty, social learning theory provides a useful prototype. Sinabi niya kung ano yung theory. This conception of behavior attempts to achieve a balanced synthesis of cognitive psychology with the principles of behavior modification. Doon lang niya sinabi. Hindi niya sinabi yung it was developed by. Di ba? Hindi natin nakita yung salitang proposed by. Automatic imply na si Bauer and Hilgard 1991 ang merong mga proponents nito. Then, this unified theoretical framework approaches the explanation of human behavior in terms of a continuous interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental determinants. So, author identifies the theory for the study. Okay? So, ginahitan ko yan. Next, dinescribe niya ang social learning theory. Social learning theory, blah, 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 blah. So, in the interest of time, I will not read each of these parts because sinasabi ko lang dito, itong template na ito ay pinahaba using this exemplar. Yung unang paragraph, kung sino yung teorya, dinescribe kung ano yung teorya, saan ginagamit ang teorya, then in-explain yung mga variables sa theory. So tuloy-tuloy yan na write-up. Ang tawag dyan, theoretical framework or theoretical perspective. So you don't just draw a box on the left, put an arrow pointing to the right, and draw another box. This is more important. Visual representation lang yung ating model, pero ito yung textual na paliwanag. Okay? Now, kahit na hindi tayo mas inclined sa qualitative, dapat alin pa rin natin when do we use qualitative theory use. But I would assume the math groups and most of the MSGC group would also be in the quantitative approach to inquiry. Although meron mangilan-ngilan siguro sa inyo na magko-quali or magmi-mixed in the future. So qualitative theory naman tayo. There are 3 variations in theory use in qualitative research. Number 1, qualitative theory is used as a broad explanation for behavior and attitudes, and it may be complete with variables, constructs, and hypotheses. Examples: ethnographic studies employ themes or aspects of culture such as social control, social organization, stability, and change. So in other words, when you're studying a particular culture, meron ka ring teorya to explain it broadly. Although qualitative is inductive by in nature, deductive ang quanti, ang quali ay inductive, there are variations in which a theory is used as a broad explanation for a behavior that you are trying to study, such as the example that is provided here, ethnography. Okay. The second one is it is used as theoretical lens, which provides an overall orienting lens for the study of gender, class, race, or other issues of marginalized groups. If you remember this one, yung paradigm natin, yung worldview natin na transformative approach. Di ba? Ito yung mga ang concern ay yung mga marginalized, the LGBT, etc., etc. So qualitative approach is very appropriate for that. At meron tayong mga examples ng mga theory under this transformative approach or paradigm. Example ito, yung feminist perspective. Ang inaaral dito, problematic women's diverse situations and the institutions that frame those situations by Olsen 2000. Meron din tayong theory na racialized discourse. It raises important, babaguhin ko na lang later yung pinos ko doon ng mga wrong spell, misspelled. Raises important questions about control and production of knowledge, particularly about people and communities of color. Di ba? May mga napapanood tayo sa mga YouTube, di ba? Pagka black yung mathematicians or black yung scientists, parang hindi pinaniniwalaan. Kahit ngayon, nag-i-exist pa rin ang racialized discourse. And this is a theory that is used to explain that. Critical theory, concerned with empowering human beings to transcend the constraints placed on them by race, class, and gender. So related dito, racialized discourse and critical theory, parehas na may kinalaman sa marginalized groups according to race and gender. O hindi pwede daw maging physician o physicist ang babae, something like that. Queer theory, ayan, gamit ito. Paborito ito ng millennials. Focuses on individuals calling themselves lesbians, bisexuals, or transgendered people. Kaya LGBTQ, tama ba? Guidance people, is that now the term that we are using? LGBTQ,
IA plus po.
RSTUV, ano ba? Ano, Jetro, paki-spell out nga. LGBT, ano pa kadugtong? Q,
May IA plus pa po sir kasi continuously evolving pa din po.
plus. Ulitin ko nga. LGBTQIA+. Lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgenders, queers. What's I? Jetro, what is I? Anybody from the group, from the MSGC group, what does I stand for? Anyone? O search nga natin. LGBTQ IA+, ayon, IA. Parang mali. Dali, balik natin.
Intersex pa ata, sir.
Intersex. Asexual. Ayon. Lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, or asexual. Asexual, parang ano naman na siya? Parang worm. Mayroong asexual reproduction. Yung parang bulate. Ano yung pagkakaiba nung... yung queer, alam natin. So, transgender are those who have already decided to get gender... ano tawag doon sa term na yun? Realignment. Is that correct? O hindi pa? Yung nagdamit babae, transgender ba yun or gay?
Ano po, depende po kasi yun, sir, sa yung sa orientation, tapos sa identity, tapos yun pong sa SOGI. So parang to well explain kasi meron po yung nagdadamit babae pero ang orientation niya naman is lalaki. So we call them as yung mga queers, may mga drag queens pero may mga lalaking ganun naman pala.
Kasi 'di ba yung queer hindi pa siya sigurado, kaya questioning eh. Oh, anyway, bago tayo baka maging gender lesson na tayo, ano, at least alam natin yung ibig sabihin na. So generally queer ang theory natin as one of the transformative theories of approaches to using qualitative research. Disability inquiry, understanding this population's social cultural perspective, allowing them to control over their lives rather than a biological understanding of disability. So example, yung mga deaf, 'di ba? Yung mga merong learning disabilities, etc., etc. So the transformative approach to studying a phenomenon makes use of qualitative theory. And we have enumerated at least 5 of these common transformative theories to inquiry. Okay? Then the third variation is qualitative studies in which the theory or some other broad explanation becomes the end point. Oh, ito na yung pagkakaiba. Yung unang variations ay nauna to explain it. Then the second one is as a lens to explain a marginalized group of people. And the third one is it's the output. Okay, the qualitative studies, some qualitative studies use theories as the end point because it's an inductive process building up from data to broad themes to a generalized model or theory. So data gathering ang nauna without theory at hand, and then nag-recur yung mga data, na-develop yung mga themes, and then dun sa dulo, na-generate ang theory. So ang product niya is theory mismo. Yung unang variations ay meron ka ng theory, like the ethnography, social culture, social change theory. The second one is yung transformative approach. So we have queer, the feminist, the disability, etc., etc. Ito kakaiba, pero ito talaga yung totoong gamit ng qualitative theory in which it's inductive, it's building up from data, and the endpoint is a broad theme or a generalized model or theory. Okay? So this is the inductive logic of research. Nag-umpisa sa ilalim. The researcher gathers information, either interviews or observations or combinations. Then the researcher asks open-ended questions and then record these notes. Kaya nga verbal, heavily verbal ang qualitative. Mas mahirap gawin. If you don't love words, don't do qualitative. If you don't love numbers, don't do quantitative. If you don't love either of them, then get out of graduate school. Wala tayong choice. Okay, you have to love either one of them or both of them. Okay? So, ulitin ko, you gather data, information, and then from the information that you gather, you develop now open-ended questions kasi may mga follow-up, hindi enough yung data. Record field notes, and then you analyze the data for themes or categories. Ano yung pare-pares na sinasabi nila doon sa tanong ko na yon? At parang iisa lang sinasabi nila na ang mga bakla ay naaapi, 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 naaapi. Ay paulit-ulit, naaapi. So theme now. Naging theme na siya kasi recurring. Then the researcher looks for a broad patterns. Kahit sino ba, kahit mapababae, mapalalaki, mapamatanda, mapabata, yun ang sinasabi. So you have searching for broader patterns, generalizations, or theories. And then the last or the end point is the researcher poses a generalization or theory from past experiences and literature. At ito na yung gagamitin naman ng mga susunod na mga studies niya, patutunayan na niya ito deductively. Okay? So from inductive, na-generate niya ang theory, ang endpoint niya ay theory, at para matest niya kung totoo nga itong theory na na-develop na ito. Over time, ititest niya ito quantitatively. So, hindi ibig sabihin na pag nag-quality ka, hanggang qualitative na yon. The purpose of this feature is to develop a theory to explain generalized patterns of behavior. And then if you have that theory, to make that theory stronger, more acceptable, and universal, you have to test that across population, across circumstances, across different contexts. Then it becomes an acceptable theory. So yung mga teorya na ating nababasa, hindi yan na-develop overnight. Yung iba dyan, kinamatayan na ng mga psychologists. Actually, somebody else's na ang nagpatuloy. Yung professors nung 1930s, ginawa na niya yan, hindi siya nakapag-generate ng theory, tinuloy nung kanyang dissertation student na medyo umayos na, tapos itong dissertation student na to naging doctoral, tapos nagkaroon ng research laboratory, dumami ang kanyang mga tropa, we call them tropa, believing in certain causes, and then lately na lang itong development na identify na tong theory na to, yung mga social learning ni Bandura, tumanda na namatay at bumanda at namatay si Bandura, hindi naman na-develop ito nung siya ay bata-bata pa. Okay? So this is the process of doing things. So how do we locate the theory in qualitative research? These are just examples na snapshot ko dun sa ating reference book. Pwede daw as early in the study. So ibig sabihin, sa beginning ng study, pwede mong ilagay ito. Ito yung example. So for your perusal na lang yun, basahin nyo later, meron naman kayo material niya. Pwede rin daw sa end. So una, sa umpisa, kailan ginagamit? Ulitin ko, yung unang example natin sa ethnographic studies as a broader way to explain things. Then as a theoretical lens, so sa umpisa. Kung ang purpose naman ng theory mo is end unit or the end point, then you could use that at the end of the study. Okay? So here is an example also. Then, mixed method theory use. Paghahaluin natin yan. So use theory deductively. You test it by virtue of data gathering and validity. And then you use inductively as an emerging qualitative theory or pattern. Kasi nag-mix ka nga, di ba? Pero depende pa rin kung ano ginamit mong mix. Di ba may mga mix tayo na sequential na uuna yung quali bago yung quanti. So dito sa example ko, sa mixed method theories na ito, this is a sequential in which this is explanatory. Kasi nag-theory ka na quantitative, then nag-inductive ka ng qualitative, so explanatory ito. Pag nauna naman yung inductive, then that is exploratory. So there are two forms of mixed methods theory use. The use of social science framework, sabi dyan, may be drawn from the diverse theories found, ano ba yan? Puyat na yung aking may be drawn from theories found, ano ba yun? Ba't tayo lumipat? Drawn, ano ba yun? Spell drawn, D-R-A-W-N, from theories, lipat, ayun. Found in the social sciences such as leadership, economics, political science, marketing, behavioral change, adoption, or diffusion. Social science framework, may be presented as a literature review, a conceptual model, or as a theory that helps to explain what the researcher seeks to find in a study. The second one, may example tayo dito, The second one is transformative paradigm theory. Again, paulit-ulit nating naririnig to. Yung transformative is a theory applicable to the study of community health issues and study of marginalized group. At ano-ano to mga to? This applies to people who experience discrimination and oppression, including but not limited to race, disability, immigration status, political conflicts, sexual orientations, poverty, gender, and age. So there are 2 forms there. Ito yung example ng mixed methods study na gumamit ng theory. And we end up with the last slide. So here's the writing exercise. Allow me to read and explain further. So you write a theoretical perspective framework for your research plan, following the script for a quantitative theory discussed. Di ba mayroon tayong script kanina? Mamimili kayo doon sa inyong sinubmit. Doon sa inyong sinubmit ng writing exercise 3, di ba meron tayo doong IBDB, IB moderating, IB mediating, etc. etc. Mamimili kayo doon. Pero hindi ko kayo binabawalang gumawa ng panibago. Pwede. Pwede naman. Iba ulit. Iba nung una, iba nung pangalawa, iba nung pangatlo. Kaya iba na naman. Hanggang sa hindi naman magkakaugnay na. Remember, yung kasunod na lesson natin dito, may kinalaman pa rin dito. That's why I'm encouraging you to fix on one set of variables because the succeeding parts ay tungkol pa rin siya dito. Pag nakapili na kayo ng isang framework, IB, moderating, or mediating DB framework, you write a theoretical perspective that will explain that. Draw a visual model. Nagawa nyo na to, uulitin nyo lang. Draw a visual model of the variables in the theory using procedures that we have discussed. Okay? May positive ba? May negative ba? Meron bang, ulitin ko, walang bilog kung latent, kundi squares only. Wala tayong pentagons, wala tayong clouds, etc. etc. Ito yung medyo mas mabigat ng konti. Locate qualitative journals that either use priority theory that is modified. Then, isang article na nasa dulo naman ng study. So, ilang journal articles? 2. Isang journal article na qualitative, na yung theory ay nasa umpisa, at yung isang study naman ay nasa dulo. Sinulat siya at the end. At ang pangatlo, locate a mixed methods study. Magsa-search lang kayo wala kayong susulatin na study pa. Nagre-research lang tayo ng journal na quali na 2 at isang mixed method na gumamit ng theoretical perspective such as feminist, ethnic, racial, LGBT, pwede. May natin ilagay dyan. Basta mixed methods. Makikita naman natin doon sa article. So what you're going, doon sa quantitative, hindi na kayo magsa-search ng quantitative study kasi gagawa kayo. Gagawa kayo ng theoretical framework na script. Ito yon. Pakita natin yung script. Ito. Ganito lang kasimple yung inyong gagawin sa item number 1. Okay? Ang number 2, i-drawing mo lang. Ang number 3, maghahanap ka ng 2 articles na yung una daw ay nasa umpisa, yung theory, at yung pangalawang article ay nasa dulo naman. Okay? At yung pangatlo ay maghanap ng mixed methods katulad nito na gumamit ng isang theoretical lens. Example, but not limited, feminist, etc. etc. So dito sa number 3, A, B, at saka number 4, huwag nyong ika-cut. I-save nyo, i-download nyo yung buong article, then isasama niyong i-attach doon sa inyong submission. So yung 1 and 2 magkasama, ulitin ko, yung 1 and 2 magkasama sa isang page, yung script at saka yung visual model ay magkasama, page 1 lang ito. Then, save nyo as a single document. Then, yung susunod na document, PDF, ilagay nyo lang ay qualitative journal a priori theory. Yung isa naman ay ang file name, qualitative journal at the end. And then yung pangatlong journal ay mixed methods. I-rename nyo lang yung file na ma-download nyo, but you have to submit that as PDF files. Okay? Sa Riniel, paki-summarize nga yung writing assignment natin.
Ayan po, sir. So, yung writing exercises po, yung 1 and 2 po is sariling gawa. And then po, sa isang page po siya, PDF, isa-save po. Then yung 3 po, dalawa pong journal articles po na qualitative. Yung isa po is a priori at the beginning po. Yung isa naman po is at the end. So, gagawin lang po is maghahanap or maglo-locate. Then, download po and then i-rename po yung file na a priori and at the end. Tapos po, same po sa number 4. Kaya lang mixed methods naman po. Ito po yung, ayan po yung mga pwede pong anuhin is feminist, ethnic, racial, or class perspective. Then po, i-rename lang din po siya na mixed methods. Tapos po, isasama po siya sa ipapasa po. So, PDF file po. Ayan po, sir.
Yeah. So I think klarong-klaro. Kung naintindihan ni Sir Riniel, naintindihan din nung iba. Okay? So do you have any concerns for now? Save natin kasi ang daming wrong spelling. As tap and shared windows. Okay? So can I ask again each and everyone to open the videos for our final attendance? Sorry naman. Okay, last na tayo, Jemarie. So yung mga wala dito, sila yung mga wala pa rin sigurong kuryente, no, at this point in time. Sana yun lang ang dahilan nila, kaya wala sila rito. Oo. Pero yeah. So we're very fortunate, ano? Lalo sa amin sa Muñoz, hindi masyadong dinaanan ng bagyo. Kaya there are many reasons to be thankful talaga. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Teresa, picturean mo nga din kasi ako, lagi na lang ako nandun sa baba pag ako yung nagpipicture.
Sige po. 1, 2, 3.
Okay? Paki-post na lang dun sa